Hello and welcome to this new section and the first lecture of that on shifting managers from being task controllers to judgment amplifiers. In this course, AI for managers and leaders. So in this particular lecture, we will talk about how to use AI for reporting, forecasting and monitoring, especially for managers and leaders, right? So how do you think you can do that? Any thoughts? You know, Using AI for reporting, forecasting, and monitoring is where you as a manager can safely automate execution work while preparing, human judgments for decisions. So you can do both of the things using AI. The key is to design AI as an early warning and sense making system. Early warning, not as a decision maker. That's the key thing to remember, right? Now, what are the practical steps that you can take to do that? Let's take a look at one by one. So, first, you need to establish a core principle, the core principle. Leaders must set this expectation very clearly that AI will prepare the picture, managers will interpret it, and leaders will decide what to do. And this will keep accountability human while extracting AI speed and scale. So establish such a core principle very clearly. Then you can use AI for reporting. Let's take a look at how can we do that. How can you move from static reports to insightful narratives? So there, what AI should do is to auto-generate dashboards and summaries, consolidate data from multiple sources that are spread around, highlight deviations from the plan, and produce plain language summary. What changed this week? That's the kind of question it should ask. And what humans can do then is they can interpret why changes have occurred, based on the data provided by AI, add business context and some market, people, timing, and decide implications and actions. Now, in this shifting, what would be wrong is to shift to monthly static report, whereas what would be great is to shift to continuous insight driven reporting. So that's what you need to do to move from static to insightful narrative. Then you could need to design the exception based reporting. So instead of reporting everything, AI should report only what matters. And there, what are the kind of things AI should flag? It can flag variance beyond thresholds. So, what are the changes? What is not happening versus the tolerance limit? Sudden changes in the reversal in the trends, sudden reversal, especially the outliers and inconsistency in the data and the report that is showing up, the conflict in the matrices, like the revenue is up and the margins are down. And then the managers can focus attention on, the risk that is emerging. What kind of risk is it? What should you do about it? The opportunity that is forming and the assumptions that are breaking so that the conclusions are no more relevant in the future. And if you do that, AI will reduce the noise and humans will focus on judgment. So design such exception-based reporting system. The fourth thing is to use AI for forecasting. And there you need to, focus on getting not one answer, but multiple future. And what should AI do? It should, generate generate forecast using historical and real-time data, produce ranges, not single numbers, and simulate multiple scenarios like what is best, what is the worst, what is expected, and continuously update forecast as the data changes. So that's what AI should do. And what should humans do? They should choose which scenario to plan against, what scenario to plan for, stress test assumption using experience, and apply strategic and ethical consideration. And the things to remember there is that AI predicts probability. It can only predict probabilities, whereas you leaders, you need to choose the priorities. Then you also need to require confidence and assumption visibility in forecast. You need to ask AI for that. For so for every forecast that AI gives, you need to mandate, things like confidence intervals in the forecast, the assumptions behind the forecast, the sensitivity drivers, what moves this most, right? What are the key drivers and what will drive the outcome or the forecast significantly? And known blind spots in terms of data gaps and volatility. And the key thing to remember that is if you are a manager cannot explain a forecast, it cannot guide decisions, right? So require confidence and assumption visibility in forecast and use it for this purpose. Then you need to use AI. You can also use AI for monitoring, for early warning signals, not for auto actions. And there, the way do these monitoring works best? Let's take a look at that. On a, when there's a drift in KPI, which is suggestive of changes happening, and breakdowns in processes, risk accumulation, deviation in compliances, and sentiment shifts for customers. And what AI should not do here is, automatically trigger punitive actions, you know, choose feedback loops without review and replace human investigation. Now, if what AI should focus is on saying something is changing, it should warn. And what humans, as humans, we should do is we should interpret and say this is what it means, and consequently, this is what we probably can do. So use AI for monitoring as an early warning, not auto action. Introduce human review thresholds in this whole process. Define explicit rules when monitoring alerts require human review. And some examples of this could be, when the variances exceed X percentage, you should have a mandatory human review, manager review. If the confidence is less than Y%, you need to escalate the whole conclusion and data and insight. And if it impacts people, if the metrics is people centric, then there needs to be mandatory discussion. And what this will do is this will prevent silent automation, which is a probability if we all keep silently accepting. Also need to separate monitoring from enforcement. And there we should we should architect systems so that AI detects, you know, humans decide, and leaders approve the action. Now, this separation will protect fairness, trust, and accountability. So, separate monitoring from enforcement. Also, train managers to read signal, just not the numbers, right? So, managers must learn to ask if this is a real signal, or is it a plain, simple, random noise? Compare short term versus long term patterns in the data. Use lived experiences to interpret anomalies. What does it say versus the experience that I've gone through? And question metrics that conflicts with the reality, right? And this will help AI sharpen the attentions, and you can then supply some meaningful, interpretation. So train managers to read signals, not just the numbers. You also can review forecast and alert retrospectively. There you need to build the learning groups, right, where you find out where the forecasts were accurate, which part, which section, which decision, where they misled, where you you were led on the wrong path, and where human judge improved the outcomes, human judgment improved the outcome. And this will improve the AI models, manager intuition, and organizational trust. So reviewing forecast and alerting retrospectively is very key. Let's take a look at the one-page operating model that you can use as a manager and leader. So there, we need to define in reporting what is the role of AI and what is the role of human being. In reporting, AI should do summarizing and flagging, wherein humans should focus on interpreting and contextualizing that summary. In forecasting, AI should focus on predicting the possible scenarios, and humans should be to choose which of the scenario work on. And in monitoring, AI should detect the drift, especially the early drift, and humans should investigate and then decide what actions to take. So that's the one page operating model that you can use. So what is the leadership bottom line? So, AI is best at seeing patterns and seeing them early. And humans are best at deciding what matters from these patterns. And the leaders, the great leaders especially, should design systems that respect both. So that's the bottom line for leaders. So why should this work for you and me and for rest of the humanity? So first, it saves managerial time because there are things that AI can do faster, better. So we allow AI to do that in terms of reporting, forecasting. Yeah, it improves the signal quality because there's a review system involved. AI gives the data, you interpret, review the data. And also it then prevents the blind automation because there's a human review involved. And it preserves accountability with the manager. And it also elevates manager into judgment-led roles rather than simply implementing what AI says, right? So that's why this should work. So what is next? So in the next lecture, we will look at how can we shift managers, you know, uh, to task controllers and judgment amplifiers by freeing managers to focus on coaching, prioritization, and decision trade-off instead of just simply executing what AI says. So thank you so much for this first lecture on shifting managers from task controllers to judgment amplifiers. I hope you are continuing to learn new things, continuing to enjoy, and I do look forward to see you again in the next lecture. Please feel free to message me if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer your questions. And do download the PDF file to take a look at anything that you need to.